Hello? Good evening, everyone. My name's John McGuire. I'm a member of the Social Justice Committee here at Holy Spirit, and I will be moderating our discussion this evening. And so welcome to our forum on homelessness in the Rochester area. We've got a wonderful panel here that I'll have introduce themselves in just a moment. Just to give you a little bit of an overview of what the agenda will be, in just a second I'll share an opening prayer, try to put things on a prayerful footing for the evening. And then I will just have each person who's sitting up with us from the various agencies that work with people that are unhoused in Rochester, first just say who they are so you know who's up with us, and then we'll go through a round and each person can talk a little bit about their agency and what their agency does. I'm hoping that as that happens, you'll start to see some of the interconnections there, but we'll get into that part after everybody's had a chance to talk about some of the long-term issues that we're looking at, how we can work to advocate for people to get the services that they need, and people will have things to share about that, I'm sure. Also, on a more immediate basis, chance to ask about how people can get involved, volunteer opportunities. So I'm sure people will be able to share about that. And we will have some question and answer. Some people have submitted questions ahead of time, which I will pass on. But of course, all of you that are here are also welcome to answer any questions you have at that time. So and that's just an overview of our agenda. So if we could start by putting ourselves in the presence of God for a moment, and then I have an opening prayer to share. Lord, please send your Spirit to guide our discussion tonight. Open our ears to learn about the needs of the homeless from the organizations and people who work tirelessly to help. Open our hearts to our gospel call to advocate so that all our brothers and sisters may have a safe place to call home and to extend our hands to volunteer our time and resources to help. Amen. Okay, so with that, I think I'll just start the microphone passing down the list here so everybody can introduce themselves.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mary ONeal, and I'm here. I actually work for Olmsted County Housing Department.
Hello, my name is Rudy Nan. I am the Director of Housing for Catholic Charities.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Saliba, and I am Board President of Family Promise Rochester.
Hello, my name is Holly Brannick, and I'm a Program Manager with LSS Rochester Youth Services.
Good evening. Good to see everyone here. My name is Tim Haskamp. I'm a long-term volunteer at Dorothy Day House and current president of the board.
Hi, my name is Tyler Mayer, and I'm a person with lived experiences being homeless.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Holly Fifield. I'm a co-founder of the Landing MN.
And I'm Kaz Klim. I'm a psych resident at Mayo, and I have a weekly psychiatry clinic there at the Landing.
Okay, I will try to talk loud. Is that better? Yeah, okay, good. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so I am Mary ONeal. I'm Associate Director of the Housing Department at Olmsted County. So we do a number of different things in our housing department. We basically have 3 different teams that I will describe for you. One is our voucher rental assistance program. So we manage all of the HUD Section 8 vouchers. There are a number of other HUD is Housing and Urban Development. It's part of the federal government. So there's a number of other vouchers that we manage as well along with that. The second team in our department is around preserving and developing, creating affordable housing in our community. So it's our development arm of the housing department. And then the last team actually came together in 2020 to join the housing department, or the HRA at that time, and that is our housing stability team. And that is a team of social workers who work to address homelessness through direct street outreach, through our ECHO Center, which is a drop-in resource center, and through some permanent supportive housing programs that we offer.
I'm not going to stand. I hurt my knee, so I'm right here. So, as I said, my name is Rudy Nan with Catholic Charities. I run the warming shelter. So it's a 45-bed emergency overnight shelter for adults experiencing homelessness. We are a low-barrier shelter, so sobriety is not required to stay. Basically, as long as the person is able to just be in the center with 40-plus other people, they're welcome to stay. We do not have a time limit or amount of nights that they can stay. As long as there's a need, they are welcome to be there. We're open from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. We serve a light dinner. We have showers, laundry, just a place for people just to kind of get ready to eat and then go to bed. And it's been amazing that a lot of our guests are sleeping. This is our beginning of our 5th season, and it's not always been like that. And I feel like we've really worked hard to build that relationship with our guests that come with us. And when you're when you're experiencing homelessness, you don't always really sleep when you're out on the streets. You always kind of have one eye open. So for me, it's nice to have that feeling, to see that people are actually using the warming center for what it's intended, a place to feel safe, to sleep, to interact with other people, and it's just been a great experience. So, yeah.
Again, my name is Stephen Saliba, and I have been a volunteer for Family Promise Rochester for almost 10 years, and I currently serve as board president. The mission of Family Promise Rochester is to support families experiencing homelessness or housing instability. We do that. We have a shelter over by Kutsky Park that can house up to 3 families, and we provide a range of support services with the goal of getting them back into housing security. And even if you're not in the shelter, we provide case management and access to resources for folks that are about to experience homelessness. For those in the shelter, we offer a range of services. We offer case management to get families hooked up with county and city resources. While they're in the shelter, we provide meals and transportation. We provide life skills training, such as budgeting, career development, conflict resolution, and that's held twice a month for both families in the shelter and families that have graduated from our shelter. We also have a couple of transitional housing units that families can graduate into that once they graduate and they're eligible, they can move into one of those transitional housing units and pay 30% of their income as rent and develop a housing history and credit history, so eventually they can move into independent housing. The need in Rochester has grown tremendously in the last few years. Our wait list has gone from 14 a few years ago. Now it is 35 families that are looking for shelter. But there is an opportunity on the horizon. Right now we can only house up to 3 families. We are working with the county right now to, they have offered us the opportunity to move into a facility that they have purchased. It will be able to house up to 12 families. In addition, there's a couple of transitional housing units that families can graduate into and start paying rent and develop a housing credit history. So that's pretty well the explanation of our program and our programs and our goals.
All right, I will try to speak louder, just yell at me. I have a tendency to speak low. Again, my name is Holly Brannick. I am a program manager for LSS Rochester Youth Services. We work primarily with youth between the ages of 16 and 24 who are experiencing homelessness. We have a variety of different programs, including housing programs. Our housing programs are considered scattered site, which means the youth, they receive financial assistance, but they are in their own apartments in the community. And we also help them with independent living skills, as well as case management and financial supports. We also work with youth who are exiting foster care, with case management and ILS classes, like I mentioned. We also have a housing program that is for safe harbor youth, which are youth who have experienced sexual exploitation or trafficking. And we do street outreach in the communities. We have our drop-in, our resource center, which is located, we partner with Zumbro Lutheran Church downtown, and we're open 4 days a week, and that's for those youth that come in. They can get access to resources, a meal. We provide them a meal every time. We have a pantry with hygiene, food, and other like cleaning items, things like that they can get access to. We also do street outreach in the whole region, not just in Rochester, but we cover like 11 counties through our different outreach programs. So that's about what we do.
Dorothy Day is one of the original shelters, and obviously the need has grown tremendously, and we're grateful to the Landings and the Warming Center for filling that need. Dorothy Day's been around since 1989, started by a group of citizens from various churches. The beauty of Dorothy Day for me is it's all volunteer shelter. We allow people to stay there. It used to be 14 days, now it's 21 days. And we're closed during the day between 9 and 4 because it's all volunteer run. We have volunteers from various churches. I think Holy Spirit comes, hopefully, John, to fix the meals, and it really makes it a homey atmosphere for the guests who stay there. We also allow visitors to come in the morning and the evening. In the morning, they have breakfast, and in the evening, just to kind of visit and have coffee. I mean, we have laundry facilities, that sort of thing. We also have the Winona nurses that have been coming. They do just a blood pressure clinic, foot clinic, and they spend a lot of time with the guests, so it's giving them a big plug. And then there's also a foot care clinic. But obviously, Landings, we'll talk about that. They do a lot of extra stuff that the homeless people need. So.
Hi, everybody. Holly Fifield. Stand up, he says. So the Landing is just turned 5 years old, and 1 year ago we opened our day center. When we opened the doors a year ago, we were seeing 50 to 60 people a day. We're now averaging over 115 people per day. So the need in Rochester and the experience of homelessness is certainly on the rise. We still have our mobile outreach unit that travels routes of parks and ramps and bridges and does outreach trying to access those. And we take medical care with us, we take social workers with us, and try to provide as much care on the go as we can. Within the center, they can get 3 meals a day. We have shower facilities, laundry facilities, on-site social workers, and our beautiful clinic that has medical care on-site for our guests 6 days a week. So all of that under one roof, which really takes down those barriers of communication, transportation, and trust. We've been working with our guests, some of them for 5 years, and so that trust sometimes takes that long to build. So when they are able to get the services in a familiar, trustworthy place, that really helps with efficient and effective use of resources. So that's really a model of care that we are really trying to promote. Can't do it alone. Dan and I are so blessed to have an incredible staff. We have 10 full-time and 10 part-time staff, because all of that takes a lot of hands. And I'm fortunate enough to have 2 of our staff with us, volunteer staff and paid staff. So I'm going to let Dr. Klim talk to you a little bit more about psych services that we have in our clinic.
Thanks so much, Holly. And yeah, as I said, Kaz, 4th-year psychiatry resident, and the clinic, I think, really developed or is developing out of a need recognized by a lot of folks on the staff at the landing, not the least of whom is sitting there in the second row, Dr. Casey Caldwell, who is our medical director and runs the primary care clinic there, and who I know certainly sees a fair number of folks dealing with mental health challenges. And sort of my philosophy in the clinic is exactly what Holly was talking about, this idea of breaking down barriers, just lowering the barrier to entry into the mental health care system. I'm there right now just one afternoon a week, and I'm pushing my department to try to get more residents, more folks, more days. But the thinking behind this, right, is that mental illness is a risk factor for homelessness. Homelessness is a risk factor for mental illness. And being mentally ill, dealing with mental health challenges, makes it much more difficult to access those services and also more difficult to exit homelessness. So this is just creating a resource that's available to people that are experiencing homelessness if they want to avail themselves of it, to give them easier access to these kind of services to help them break out of that cycle. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name's Tyler. I am a recovering survivor of substance use disorder and chronic homelessness. A lot of people would say I'm the poster boy for stigma, because the majority of the population assumes can you hear me now? Test, 1, 2. All right. The majority of the population assumes that when we see homeless individuals, that stigma is an automatic response. And that's tough to deal with. Without getting into too many details about my addiction, it began when I was young, 15, before I really knew what I was getting myself into or how bad it would become. Fast forward 10 years, and that was when the event horizon occurred. I did complete high school, I went to college, got a great job. I was functioning as an addict. And when I hit that event horizon, homelessness happened within an instant. And there's many different definitions of homeless. There's couch surfing homeless, there's staying with family homeless. My homelessness was to the extreme from day one. My first night being homeless, I attempted to call people to try to find a place to stay and was unsuccessful. This was on March 17th of 2017. So it was cold. I had nothing but the suitcase I was rolling around with, a jacket and a phone that was about to die, and absolutely no money. I crawled into a building that was being built in the neighborhood that I was now removed from, and I crawled inside a bag of insulation to try to stay warm through the night. That too, I was also unsuccessful. I woke up the next morning, or got up the next morning, and just started walking because I didn't know where to go, what to do. No one was answering my phone. So that is where the trauma starts. Boom, day 2, the trauma begins. And the only thoughts I had were, okay, where am I going to get my next meal? How am I going to get warm because I can't feel my fingers? Why isn't there anyone out there that's wondering how I'm doing? Again, more trauma. Survival mode was instantaneous. That continued day in and day out for 3.5 years. I was sleeping in alleyways, under bridges, and unfortunately I was breaking into laundry rooms of apartment buildings, getting woken up by police, who instead of sending me to jail, they just let me go. Because they didn't really know how to help me, or maybe the story I gave them, they felt a little bit, but I had to tell them, like, listen, I was just freezing. I was just cold. That's the only reason I'm here. I had been up for 2 days because I was walking, not knowing where I was going. That's the only reason I'm here. So they would let me go. One trespass to another, to another. And I can tell you this, homelessness and survival mode inevitably stripped me of my morality, because I never really knew what hunger was. Like, I thought I knew, like we all think we know, right? Oh, I could eat a horse. I'm so hungry on Thanksgiving Day. No, I realized what true hunger was when I could see myself getting skinnier. I could feel weak in my knees because I hadn't eaten in 2 days, and I could feel my body burning its own energy and not having enough strength to get from point A to the unknown point B. And my morality was stripped because I was so hungry that I did become, in society's eyes, a thief. I would go into gas stations, grocery stores, just to fill my stomach, with no other negative intent or any negative intent at all. The only thought I had was, I need to eat. Now, granted, yes, I was in active addiction at this time. That was the domino effect into homelessness, which is why I say I am the poster boy for stigma. But what homelessness showed me and taught me was that I'm only one of 40%. The statistics show that 40% of people who are homeless are either addicted or alcoholics. But what the statistics don't show is if they were that way prior or after they became homeless. I've met so many people during my journey that were not addicts, that were not alcoholics, that were dealing with the mental health that they obtained either before homeless or during. And I can tell you, my mental health spiraled when I became homeless. The trauma behind it was so immense that my addiction and the mental health together just made it that much worse. Survival mode caused me to not be able to think into the foreseeable future. I could only think about now, right this instant. Like I said, how do I stay warm? How do I find a meal? And it's devastating to not be able to think into the future, or to not have the resources to try to get up on my own 2 feet. But the people that I met while I was out there were the most genuine, kind-hearted individuals, selfless individuals that were just dealt bad cards, right? Everyone's story is different. Maybe my story is I'm the poster child for stigma. But I was able to find recovery and work on my mental health. And I feel like I have this duty now to try to shed the stigma away that is ingrained in us through society. Because I could be walking for days and be hungry and come across an individual that I had met a week before that was also homeless, that could see I was hungry and have nothing other than a granola bar in his backpack and share it with me. That type of life experience opened up my eyes to the fact that, I might not ever wish homelessness on my worst enemy, but I would never take the experience away from me for anything, because it showed me that the stigma is not true. It showed me that there are so many different individuals that were just given a bad hand in this in particular moment, and they just needed a little extra support to try to get out of it. Today, it irks my heart to see individuals that are struggling with mental health, and just mental health, that maybe they had it before they were homeless and it got worse when they became homeless, or it sprouted when they did become homeless. There's people in my life today that are still homeless that I consider family, because I was once homeless with them. There's war veterans out there that are homeless. There's a war veteran that is today homeless that once opened his door to me when I was. And that hurts my heart. There's individuals, elderly individuals in wheelchairs that are rolling across the street in the morning and then across the street at night. That irks my heart. I also had a friend who was young, 20 years old, homeless, and I couldn't understand why. And once I got to know him, he told me that he grew up in an abusive home, and he chose to leave because he didn't know what else to do. I think that the only way to break the stigma is to do what all the people up here are currently doing, including Dan and Holly, because what they did for me changed my life forever. They looked at me as a human being. They looked at me as a person who was struggling and not only needed help, but deserved that help. The unfortunate part about stigma is that the ingrained stigma is we assume that they don't deserve it because they put themselves there. It's a way for us to cope with the fact that in that moment we feel like we can't help them as single individuals, and that may be true. But as a group, as a community, we can. And that's what this community did for me. I was living under a bridge a handful of years ago, I think when the landing was nothing other than a mobile unit. Am I correct at the time? Were you just a mobile unit when we met? I was living under a bridge with 5 or 6 other individuals. And Dan Fifield came walking down into the grime and the mud in his nice blue jeans and white collar shirt. And I'm like, who the heck is this guy? Well, it seemed like it. You were in a tuxedo in my eyes. I wish I had that nice of clothes at the time. But he came down there, and he came bearing survival packs, emergency meals, hats, gloves, clothes. And of course, I had to question it because I had been homeless for about 2 years at the time. And so I went up and I asked him, I said, well, why are you down here? What is your reason? Like, what is your agenda? Because that was the survival mode, the lack of trust that homelessness does to individuals. And he said to me, I'm down here because God loves you as he does me. And that stuck with me. And then it was in that exact instant I knew that he did not have a stigma. It did not matter to him why any of us were down under that bridge. Our life story prior to being homeless did not matter to him. The only thing that mattered is that he knew that we were struggling and that he wanted to help. And the only way that he could do that was through the love of God, selfless love. And that is what he gave me, and that is what he continues to do for individuals today. And that is what sparked the flame in me to not only believe that I could change or that I deserve to change, but sparked the self-love to believe that I could do so. I ended up going to treatment, and I was like 30 days into recovery. Ended up homeless again, and then went back to the landing. Was doing outpatient treatment via Zoom at the landing to continue to get healthy. And every day when I'd walk in there, 2 weeks later, 30 days later, 60 days later, I'd go up and I'd tell him, hey, I'm 60 days sober. And he would say that he was proud of me, and that he loved me, and that he cared for me. And that is the difference. If we are able to love complete strangers and to not judge people for what maybe we can't understand, but we don't have the ability to understand, and it's not our job to try. It is our job to just love unconditionally. It's not just to love your neighbor, but to love complete strangers. Because at the end of the day, we are all God's children. And that is what Dan showed me, and what he continues to show to everyone that walks through his doors. And the landing is just one of the biggest parts of my recovery journey. Not just from addiction, but through homelessness. I was able to walk through the doors and to obtain something that, while in homelessness, is almost impossible. And that is to be able to relax, to feel safe, even for a moment, to be able to gather my thoughts, to then not only be able to think of today and how I'm going to survive, but to think about tomorrow and how I'm going to live a life that is worth living, because the community and support around me gave me the strength to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler, for sharing your story with us, and thank you all for sharing with us about what you do. I'm going to move us into some questions and answers now, and starting with some questions that people have submitted to us, and then we'll open it up for audience questions in a moment. One thing that we wanted to ask, and maybe any of you can speak to this that would have any words about it, thoughts about this, is the question of how we might advocate to provide shelter for our homeless brothers and sisters that are in need of shelter. So maybe you could think of this in terms of ways to support your services, but also if there's public policy aspects of that. We want to broaden the lens and try and be getting to the underlying issues. So I'll open that for anybody. Does anybody have any thoughts as far as questions about advocacy?
Just two quick thoughts as it relates to family homelessness. One, very thankful to Mary ONeal for offering us the opportunity to run our family shelter over at a facility bought by the county, rent-free, that will house up to 12 families. Our challenge is this. A few years ago, it took about 76 days for families to graduate out of the shelter program. It is now 120 plus days to try to graduate families out of our shelter and into sustainable housing, because there is a lack of available housing. So one way that we as citizens can advocate to decrease family homelessness is to get more housing. And whatever we have to do to change policy to do that, that's the big challenge that we face. We don't have anywhere to put families because this is just an expensive housing market. So that is our big challenge that we need to get our city and county representatives to address.
Speaking from the county perspective, I would say that we elect our commissioners and city council members and our state legislators. They are supposed to be working on behalf of us. So I would encourage everybody to have conversations with the elected officials. Be aware of what is happening in Rochester. Be aware of the ordinances and the laws that are being passed here in Rochester and Olmsted County, and certainly, of course, Minnesota. That's one thing I think everybody in this room can do for sure. I was going to say something. Oh, housing, affordable housing. Affordable is a very relative term, okay? Many apartments that we call affordable here in Olmsted County, a one-bedroom is going for $900 a month. That's affordable. I can guarantee you it's not affordable for the, I would say 99.9% of people that we serve who are experiencing homelessness. So that is another area when we talk about affordable. If anybody owns property and you're a landlord, feel free to reach out to me because we have programs that we'd love to partner with you on. But keep in mind that affordable really is not. Right now in Olmsted County, we have about 650 Section 8 vouchers. That's through the whole county. And Rochester alone has, what, 120,000 people? So it's a very, very small percentage of the number of people who have rental assistance in our community. So we're in dire need of more rental assistance, and Olmsted County Housing Department goes after everything that we can. If there's new HUD vouchers available, we ask for them. If there's state funding available, we go after it. So we do everything we can to bring more rental assistance to our residents of Olmsted County, but definitely rents are not affordable in this community.
Does anybody else have any thoughts as far as public policy?
From my perspective, I think the biggest thing any person can do is relationship. Just try to get to know some of the homeless. But I do have a comment about our public figures, and I'm curious if Mary didn't answer the question that the grant was denied, right? Yeah, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but I struggle with our city when it's a moral issue for me. Why are we willing to fund a $64 million sports complex? And we're not willing to do something to build a shelter. And a lot of that has to do, in my eyes, with stigma. We have a hard time dealing with the pain of homelessness. It's in our face. I think that's why we talk about ordinances and stuff, because we want to sort of move them aside. So I think the biggest thing that you can do is to be aware and to be conscious of who you're electing for our officials and getting to know people and trying to understand the issue, which is why you're here.
I'll keep this really brief, but I sure can. Thank you. We really, and I think everybody here believes that it's our responsibility and our privilege to advocate for the members of our community in need. So I'm going to be the bold one to say there is a camping ban that's being considered by our city council right now. If you're not aware of it, educate yourself about it and communicate with your city council members about it. They are criminalizing our friends, telling them that they cannot camp on public property. This ordinance would make that illegal, putting them at risk of criminal charges, a $1,000 fine, and up to 90 days in jail. When we see 115 people a day, and there are currently 70 beds in Rochester overnight for emergency shelter, we know there's a minimum of 50 people out there that have to be somewhere. They cannot magically make their bodies disappear for 12 hours a day. To criminalize them and to pass this ban, we believe would, going back to the morality of it, we really think that it's not well thought out, the consequences that would lead to. So again, like Tim said, educate yourself. That's why we're thrilled to be here and that you all are here. Educate yourselves, ask the questions. That's why we're here, to answer and help advocate, so ask. Oh, there are sleeping in cars is also built into that, so that would also could be found to be illegal. So they passed the motion to put it into final review. It has not been passed as an ordinance to go on the books yet. Yeah, that I don't know. I do not know the answer to that question.
So I just wanted to piggyback what Tim had talked about, just educating yourselves. So for the warming center, our biggest challenge is that we just don't have enough beds. Our occupancy is 45. We've got a few extra beds, so we're pushing as many people as we can into the shelter. But as just for an example, in the month of November, we turned away over 100 people. And that's just in November. Granted, it was a milder season, but I mean, we haven't even begun winter. So really to understand, and we've seen a gradual, this has been happening for the last several months where we've seen us turning away more people. Thankfully, we do have a backup site, an overflow site through the Salvation Army, and that is up to another 20 beds. So, 65, 70 beds that we were able to provide for those experiencing homelessness, but it's still not enough. So, just really knowing that we have a ton of folks that have nowhere to go, and it is one of the worst feelings to have to send somebody away, when they don't have like a proper coat or, it's just, it's hard. It is extremely hard. I had to turn a female away the other night, and she started crying. She had nowhere to go. What am I supposed to do? And we've seen our numbers grow incredibly. It's just heartbreaking to have to tell anybody, but this young female, it was hard. She didn't have anybody here in town. She didn't know anybody, and we had no options for her, so.
We'll be with you in just a second, sir. Did you have a specific follow-up to his question?
Yes, you were mentioning this young gal came to your place and she had a place, she didn't have a place to stay. Do you have a list of people that maybe some of the people that are here would have a room for them at their house that you could call and see if, one of us could put her up? And would they be safe if they did?
I'll repeat your question, sir, and tell me if I have it right, just to make sure everybody could hear it. He's wondering, in the case like was just mentioned, where there wasn't space for a woman, do they have a list of people in the community that have offered to provide shelter in a situation like that? So is that something that can be done? And then also about safety I think you were thinking specifically about the person was unhoused, if that happened. Does anybody have any?
Well, I can speak to one of the programs that we've been trying to get up and going. We have funding for our host homes. This is specifically for youth age 16, 17, so minors. So if anybody is ever interested in that, they can contact our info line. I'll leave my my card with them. But in the state of Minnesota, in order to be able to do that, you have to be licensed foster care because these are minors. So we do run into a lot of roadblocks, and it's like an emergency shelter. It's for up to 21 days. So that's one example to kind of answer that question, at least for minors. That's something that we have a really hard time finding housing for minors.
So you're talking about a young person under what age?
16, 17.
They have to have a licensed person to accept them. That is so ridiculous.
The foster home has to be licensed. But part of what you're saying is if somebody was interested in providing that service, if they were willing to go through the foster home accrediting process, it's something people could do. Okay. Right, yeah. So is that something they would do through the county, through Olmsted County Social Services? They would contact them and then they could be linked with your program if they wanted to do that. Okay. Well, I have a couple of questions here that were submitted, so I'll throw them out and then whoever wants to answer. I think people started to talk about some numbers of people you serve, but someone was wondering how are the number of homeless people counted or determined? And I guess I would just dovetail on that. Any estimates you have about how many people are unhoused on any given day? Or, so anybody have any thoughts?
Well, I can speak to the part where you're asking how are they counted. This is actually coming up. It's called the point in time count. That's actually, it's in January. We do a lot of like the counting at the Project Community Connect, but also through outreach on, I believe it's the Wednesday, the 24th of January, if somebody else could, I can't remember the exact date. So that is for HUD definitions. I think, Mary, you mentioned what HUD is for those who are literally homeless on the streets. And so and this is the one count that is throughout the entire U.S. For that night, and it just happens to be in January, which I'm not a huge fan of when that is, because homelessness in Minnesota in January looks way different than homelessness in Texas in January. So it's going to look a lot different. But those are somewhere we get some of those numbers as far as like, but as far in Minnesota, Minnesota also includes couch hopping for those numbers. And I would say I can say with youth, we see about 100 to 200 youth per year that we work with who are experiencing homelessness.
I was just looking at the data. We just got the numbers today. And in November, so every visitor that comes into the landing, we register their visit in HMIS, which is the Homeless Management Information System. It's a statewide system so that we can track what services are being used by who and how often. We saw 454 unique individuals just last month. We're on average seeing about 100 new faces every month. Beyond that, Mary, what month was it we did that count? July? So we partnered with the county. They certainly did the lion's share of the work and went out. They hired a guide, somebody with lived experience, to show them who's out there unsheltered, living in boarded up houses, living under drainage ditches, living in parks, in camps, all the places. They're very resourceful, and they need to be. And 274 is the number I'm remembering. 174, but that's on the top of the 60 that would have been in shelter beds at the time. So we know that there was at least 234 unsheltered every night. Do you want to add to that, Mary? Any idea how many are missed by the county? You know, I'm sure there were many sleeping in their cars that weren't counted, and we know there were other campsites that, you know, we're unaware of, sure.
I know one of the things that I've been seeing more, and it's a big problem, we're seeing more families. Dorothy Day years ago did not take us, I mean, we always try to accommodate families. We have 2 families in now, that's unusual, but we're seeing an uptick with that. At least that's what I have seen. I mean, I don't have any concrete numbers, but that to me is just really sad. I have a lot of difficulty with that.
Adding to that, as I mentioned before, we went from 14 families on our waiting list back 3 years ago. Right now is at 35 families that are homeless and looking for housing. And Mary, I don't know if you can verify this number, but I think that they did a count at the school district, and I think they identified 600 children that were experiencing homelessness. So those are pretty heavy numbers to deal with.
We actually have some funding from the state of Minnesota that the county receives, and we hired 2 social workers to be embedded in Rochester Public Schools to address family and youth homelessness in the school district. And Steve is right. In last school year, they did have approximately 600 students during that entire school year who were experiencing homelessness or housing instability. As of, I believe it was beginning of November, they had 100 new referrals for this school year. So that's just a referral. So you multiply that by 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 children in each household, and you can get a sense of the numbers of students experiencing homelessness within Rochester Public Schools. So while Family Promise hears about 35 families who are likely literally homeless, we still have many families in this community who are without housing, who are couch hopping, who are living with other families, multiple family members in one household. So it is a big problem in our community.
Hi, my name is Cindy Kruger. I go to Pax Christi Catholic Church, and we do a bunch of stuff for people who are homeless and such. I've been blessed to volunteer at the Dorothy Day House, and I'm really ticked off that they took some beds out of there. Some health guy came in there and says, you can't have beds, these many beds in here, when we're trying to house people who are homeless. I'm really ticked off when they say you have to cook everything right here, when we have people who work a job and try to be there by 5 o'clock to serve dinner to somebody, but somebody has to get there early to cook stuff, unless they just want boiled spaghetti every night or a hamburger. So that really upsets me, that the county or the state or whoever the heck is doing it, when people are trying to do something good, they tie your hands with all these regulations and rules. I think it's wrong. Secondly, I look at the people. You guys are doing great, okay? I appreciate the work you do, both your volunteers and the people who are paid. But all I'm hearing tonight is how bad the problem is. I'm not hearing any suggestions on solutions except contact your legislature. I've tried that. They could give a rat's ass whether I contact them or not. They're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to do what money talks. Whoever pushes the buttons, whoever controls stuff, that's who's going to get what they want. And I won't mention any companies or nonprofit organizations in Rochester, but I don't see them here tonight telling us what they can do to help. So I'm just a little upset that my gut is just bubbling right now, because all I'm hearing is about the problem, and I'm going to walk out of here, I'm going to be pissed off and know there's nothing I can do to help anybody except fix dinner at the Dorothy Day House or fix the Sunday lunch program at St. Francis. But nobody really is saying, hey, let's build a tiny home community. You know, I was at Dorothy Day one night, or several years ago, and there was an old lady there. And I sat down, I was having dinner with her after we fixed dinner, and I said, well, what would you really like? What would you want? And she said, all I want is a door that I can lock at night. She's not asking for the Taj Mahal. She's not asking for a 2-bedroom, even a 1-bedroom apartment. Maybe she's just asking for a tiny home or a room where she can lock the door at night so she knows she can sleep and not have to sleep with one eye open. Shelters are great, but they're dangerous some of the times. There's people get hurt in them because there's no security, and that's too bad. I love Family Promise. You guys are helping 3 families, you know, but we should be helping more. And I don't know who to go to. I don't know who to write letters to. I don't think the politicians care. I got to be honest with you. And I even wonder if the organizations or the businesses here in town even care. Because what I see by what's going on in this ordinance they want to pass about no camping on city property is they want the homeless gone. But I got news for you. If anybody's ever read the Bible, God said the poor will always be with us, and it's our job to help them. And our government is not doing it. I think our churches are trying, but we can only do so much. Okay, I'm done. I'll dummy up.
Thank you for speaking up.
So thank you. Thank you for your passion and your caring for our neighbors. That's really, really important. And that goes for all of you. You're here on a Monday night in the cold December. So thank you. Somebody mentioned that our grants got denied. The county's grant and our grant also got denied. And while there's some disappointment with that, we are also a little bit excited because it gives us the opportunity to pause and work with our community partners. And Mary sent it, she beat us to the punch. She sent out the email this morning saying, hey, when can we get together to talk? And I see a collaboration that's going to happen with the people that are up here. And we can't say a whole lot, but we have ideas. And all right, nutshell version of what we've been thinking about that we haven't even gotten to share with these folks yet. We've got a world-class health system here in Mayo Clinic, right? And part of the reason that they are successful is because they bring together a comprehensive system. You can see psychology and neurology and a surgeon and all the specialties that you need in one place. We think it's important that we continue that trend, replicate that kind of a system, and create a comprehensive center where they can get day services, overnight shelter, all in a place where they're with people that they know and they trust. So that's something. We've been down to, there's a tiny home village down in Austin, Texas, that we've spent a couple of weeks at, that we're learning from, called Community First Village. Google it, YouTube them, watch them. They do some amazing work. That's a vision we have for the future. We have to make sure we have basic needs met first before we can go into those next phases. But know that we hear you, we agree with you, and we're here to help work with these folks to come up with a good solution. So I'm kind of excited that we have this opportunity to push pause. I think it's an opportunity.
No, appreciate all the questions and comments, especially that last one. And yeah, I mean, I appreciate your statement. And I mean, I think, you know, I'm not speaking for my institution, but I think we got to call out Mayo Clinic, right? There's a ton of expertise, but too often that expertise stays in the tall buildings downtown, right? And those of us that work there, those of us that know people that work there, I wonder if there's more than a few in this room. I think we have an obligation to serve our community, and I think we can ask ourselves how to bring that expertise to the people that need it and deserve those services. And yeah, frankly, I think my institution could be doing more, and on an individual level, you know, I think all of us could be doing more as well.
I would also like to acknowledge that our work with people experiencing homelessness has come a long ways. You heard Dan and Holly talk about their 5-year anniversary. You heard Rudy talk about 5th season. We're new. We've done a lot of work. COVID, in my mind, it wasn't a great experience. I'm not saying that correctly. But it was a silver lining for us, because this is what happened as a result of COVID. We came together as a community, as partner agencies, and we're working together. I can speak from our perspective with the housing department. During COVID, we purchased a building that is 18 units of permanent supportive housing for people experiencing homelessness. We just recently purchased another building that is extended shelter, 90-day program that we partner with Catholic Charities on. So people can stay there. There's 12 beds, up to 90 days to get them to transition into permanent housing. We bought a duplex during COVID that we partner with Family Promise on, and they use it as transitional housing. The grant that Tim and Holly have talked about, you might have seen it in the media this weekend. We applied for shelter capital. There was $100 million passed during this past legislative session for shelter capital, so to build or renovate shelters. We applied for that for $10 million, and unfortunately we did not receive it. and the landing also applied for some of that funding. But that's not going to stop us because we have been able to do some pretty great things, and that's only from housing, the Olmsted County Housing Department. All of these agencies have done some incredible things. So while homelessness does seem to be on the rise and it's far more visible than it ever has been, I also want to stress that we have done a lot of work in the last 3, 4, 5 years. So we've come a long way. And there is a long way to go. There's no doubt about that. But we are working on that, for sure.
Kind of to build on that with some of the positives, because I think that is really important to point out. Latest session, there was record amount of money allocated for the Homeless Youth Act and for Safe Harbor, which with our programs has been great. We went from, with our Safe Harbor youth, again, these are youth who have experienced sexual exploitation or trafficking. We went from being able to house 6 of them in their own apartments in the community up to 10 to 12 a year. So that's really a positive thing. There is, with this increased funding, we can house more youth with that. But it's only for 2 years, and then after 2 years, we have to reapply every time. So we always have to push while I'm advocating for youth, of course, I'm advocating for all programs too. We work really closely with Olmsted County Victim Services and with their Safe Harbor, because they have the supportive services, and we work really well together. And they have recently they were working with getting a house where they have a couple apartments for like an emergency for youth who have experienced for more emergency needs, which is great. So there is positive things going on too.
I just wanted to add also, having been at the warming center since the very beginning, there are people that first walked into our shelter that are now housed successfully. And, just to kind of go with that, there's good things happening. And, like Mary, I think that COVID was a horrible thing, but there was some good things that came out of it. And it jump-started our program. And we work closely together. I think that, I don't know, I didn't decide that this is the work that I wanted to do. I actually was in banking and insurance, and 5 years ago, I just really felt moved to want to do more for the community, and this is what I've done, and it's been the most amazing thing ever. I wish I would have done it sooner, and I just want to give a shout out to Dorothy Day, because you guys have been doing this for the last 30 years, way before any of us were here. And to think that the stuff that we have going on now really should have been in place like 20 years ago. So for Dorothy Day and everybody that's ever been a part of that, and to the lady, I feel your passion and I know you're frustrated, but there is good things going on, and it's easy to just kind of talk about all the negative, especially when we're turning people away. But like, I go into the center and I focus on the people that I have, and like just the relationships that I've been able to build with our guests. People that might have growled at me the first time I said hi to them now are feeling comfortable enough to come into my office and talk to me about things. When you can eliminate that fear of like, where am I going to sleep tonight? Am I going to be able to eat? Am I going to be able to shower? And I think that you're able to provide a place where somebody feels safe, feels valued as a person, knows that nobody's judging them. Like, all the things that all these organizations up here have worked very hard to do, we're connecting with a population that doesn't ever feel that. And so to be able to do that and let them have some kind of hope, I've seen people turn around and have maybe rested up, and now they're able to focus on the next step, to get help, to talk to somebody. So yeah, there is good things going on, and I would love to see, I wish our grants had gone through and that we could go into our new shelter, but something that I think all of us have done up here is, everything hasn't always worked out the way that we'd want it to, but we find a way because we have a population of people that deserve us to really push and like think out of the box. And so, to the lady that commented earlier, yeah, we need to figure something out, because I think it's going to take out of the box thinking. It's going to take a community that's fired up. It's going to take a community that is tired of hearing about people not having a place to be. Just because you don't have 4 walls and a roof doesn't mean you're not a person. that you're not valued. I tell my team all the time, every single person that comes into that shelter is somebody's loved one, is somebody's son, daughter, is somebody that somewhere in this cares about. And, you know, like, we owe it to this population of people to really just, whatever it takes. And I think that's what we've done very well this last few years, is work together to figure out something. And, you know, we're going to do it, so.
Yeah, I want to give people a chance to ask questions here.
Actually, I wanted to just throw something out. We're transitioning here from Michigan, and we have a county in Michigan that does a program. They call it McRest, and it's Macomb County, so it's the MC and the rest. In essence, in the program, and there's all kinds of things that are horrible about it, but it's sort of a triage thing. They move the homeless shelter from church to church a week at a time over the course of the cold months of the winter. Now, that's a horrible program for the people, and the logistics of it are awful, but I keep thinking about your word, the stigma. When you're part of a faith community that has had these people in your gym for a week, and you probably came up and volunteered some, you see them in a different way than when you're writing your county commissioner or your, councilman and saying, we don't want low-income housing in our neighborhood. So I just, kind of wanted to throw that into the mix.
I think I'm going to ask a person from Family Promise to speak to that.
Thank you for that. We've been around since 1999 in Rochester, and we used to be known as Interfaith Hospitality Network. And we had the church model. We had a network of churches that would host families for a week, and they were supported not only by the congregation that was housing the family, but they were supported by members of congregations throughout the area. And we were able to house 4 families at a time. And it was wonderful because the volunteers were able to connect with the families. They were able to be evening hosts with the families, interact with the kids. When I initially volunteered for Interfaith Hospitality Network, I was an overnight host. And it was a great way just to know what these families were going through. It was also wonderful sleeping on an air mattress and accidentally rolling off onto the linoleum floor in the middle of the night. But we got away from that model when COVID hit. So that did affect us because then it was no longer viable to host the families at the churches. We then purchased a property to house families that's over by Kutsky Park. Unfortunately, it did not enable us to have the kind of volunteer connections that we want. But we have this great opportunity. The county, Mary and the county have purchased a facility. They are spending $500,000 to renovate it for Family Promise to run our shelter there rent-free. Will enable us to house up to 12 families. In addition to that, there's a lot of open space in this facility, and we're going to make a major effort to get volunteers to reconnect with these families and support them through evening hosting, through meal prep, and sharing meals with these families, and we will begin to have the overnight host program again. So we're on our way to doing that, where we get that stronger connection between volunteers and families. Thank you.
Many people here will remember the Holy Spirit used to be host families, so we used to host families here. But it's nice to hear that there was a way to kind of reconnect, because that personal connection piece was lost. Do you have a question, sir?
I have a question for Family Promise guy. You mentioned these. The question I have is for the Family Promise guy. You mentioned that you have these families. What has brought these families to the situation that they're in where they need your service? Is it a loss of a job, or the housing, they're lost their housing because they can't afford the rent or the payment? So what is the circumstances that they're in?
Well, 2 big reasons. Number one, a lot of these families have single mothers. So they've lost one parent, and so now they're in a precarious position with housing. So that's, I would say that's probably 80% of our families that come into the shelter. The remainders are ones that they're just one bad decision, financial decision from being homeless. Raised rents without any notice have caused them to be homeless. We get a lot of families that come in from outside the county that are seeking shelter, but those are the two big reasons. Forced out of their home because of increasing rent and because of broken families, and now there's a mother looking for a place to house their family. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? Oh, okay.
I got a question for back to the money and the grants getting denied. I'm from up in Carver County in Chaska, and I came down here for treatment, so I'm not familiar with how you guys work. But can you guys like hold any like benefits or fundraisers or anything like that to raise more money? Because since I've been down here for a year, I don't think I've seen anything like that. But then again, I don't know if you guys are able to or anything like that. So.
Anybody want to speak to that? He's asking about fundraisers or things that you might do to.
LSS does do fundraisers. We have, that's above my pay grade, so to speak, that those that that put on those, but we host them at like every year we put on a luncheon at the country club, and then we also do like a state funding and stuff like that. So we do, and we take donations. We get places donate to us all the time. So we do fundraising.
Individuals can also donate to pretty much all the
Yes.
organizations up here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could speak to that a little bit too. We have an events committee at Family Promise. A few of the events that we do have, we just a few weeks ago had a holiday concert, choir concert, and this is where the congregations are just fantastic in supporting us. Choirs from various churches gathered together over at Rochester Methodist, and we held a choir concert along with a silent auction. And volunteers put together over 100 baskets that were available to be bid on, and that's probably our biggest fundraiser. We also have Holy Spirit is going to allow us to work at one of their pancake breakfasts at probably either February or March of next year. We had a trunk or treat event where we used the United Way parking lot, and volunteers would decorate their trunks, and it was a place for parents to take their kids to trick or treat. We also partner with local restaurants in the area where a portion of the proceeds go to Family Promise, so we have some of those events. And last year, we bussed tables over at Pizza Ranch, and we hope to do that again, where we get a portion of the proceeds from the restaurant. So those are just a few of the events, and we hope to offer even more events next year.
I just want to say that Dorothy Day is very fortunate because we've been around. We're completely funded, no grants or anything, and I think that's just because we've been around for so long. So I'm very grateful. But, you know, one of the biggest things we need, and I think all the other agencies need, and what you can do, I appreciate, I can't remember your name, I should know it, is the volunteers. That's what you do. You come, you help out, even if you're not comfortable, just come and visit. You know, maybe you can do a shift, because that's how you get to know about this issue, is getting to know them. So, I mean, we have some very dedicated volunteers, and I really appreciate them. I think I've been involved with Dorothy Day many years, and over the last 4 or 5 years, we've had more collaboration with the different agencies, and I'll give the landings a lot of credit for that. We've had a lot more community forums. That's what needs to be done. And again, I'm just very thankful for all the gifts that we have been given, because we are blessed.
I just wanted to go again because I do want to recognize that we have a lot of places that work with us that, like Bethel Lutheran Church has donated to us, that we do a Christmas party for our youth every year, and we have several churches throughout the area where the congregations got together and bought Christmas items for our youth. We'll also take volunteers for our resource center, or if you just want to provide a meal, if you just want to bring in and drop off a meal at our resource center, just give us a call and we can set that up. There's so many things that you can do as individuals. If you want to do like a more volunteer and come in, maybe you're really good with money and you want to like do a financial class for youth. There's so many things that you guys can do. Everybody has a talent. I know some youth that were like, they really want to learn how to knit. Just little things like that. There's all these things that anybody can do.
Actually, I have two questions. One is could somebody up there tell me the status of the campground? Can you hear me? Here. Can you hear me? Here, take this thing. I have two questions. Use the mic. Oh, okay. The first one is, could somebody up there give me a status on the campground amendment or whatever it is in front of the city council? And the second thing is we have, from my observation, one really important resource up on the panel tonight. The gentleman third from the right there. I mean, these people that have been on the street and are now in a position to help are really an incredible resource that needs to be nurtured. With that, I'll give you the mic back.
Yeah, any updates? I think people maybe started to speak to this, but about the ordinance.
So I'm Dan Fifield. I'm one of the co-founders. I'm married to this beautiful young lady here, of the Landing Amen. So the city ordinance that was put forth it's a camping ban that will prohibit camping on all city property, in vehicles, on right-of-ways, with a blanket, with a sleeping bag, with a fox in a box, if you will. It is a ordinance that is created to essentially push homelessness out of our parks and off of our streets. If you talk to any individual within the city, they will tell you that we are going to use this judiciously. Well, I'm sorry, you can't use an ordinance that's in place judiciously and hunt and pick the people that you want to have not exist on your park property. There has to be other options available to them to allow them to exist. We have a lot of individuals that are not able to go to shelters for whatever reason that might be, whether it's PTSD, social anxiety disorder. They've been kicked out of the shelters. We trespass people because of behaviors, because they threaten staff, because of whatever reason they can't be there. They still have to have a place to exist and a means to do that. There has to be an option. They don't listen to options that are presented to them, or at least they haven't. I know that there's some proposed litigation out there about this camping ban. I think that if you have a voice, you need to make your voice heard to the city council. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Do you know when it's going to be considered in front of the council?
What was the question again?
When will it be considered in front of the council?
I have not heard yet. I keep in pretty close contact with the city attorney. I've reviewed the ordinance, I've given him my feedback on it, and we'll see where it goes. I'm hopeful that they'll let me know. I keep a pretty close eye on the city council agenda. So. Do you know if it'll be open to the public when they discuss it? Yeah, it should be.
Can you get that information when you get it to the churches here in Rochester? I know you put it in our bulletin.
Yep, not a problem.
I think one of the things is communication. We don't hear about some of this.
So. Right. I'll get it to Lisa or get it to somebody here at the church. But keep an eye on the web. Well, you know, I'm going to give you my business card so you and I can talk further. So.
We have a question. Okay.
I really want to thank everybody for what they do and did and still doing, but I think with 650 homeless individuals and families, there is probably 3,000 that fear homelessness and are closer, and there's a lot of organizations in town that prevents it, like Three Rivers, St. Vincent de Paul, The Rent, and I forget probably a lot, but I want to thank them all too. So great job, everybody.
I just wonder in the overnight center if sexual assault is an issue. I do know of a young lady who was in a different community and then, you know, they're, because of past abuses are hesitant to use some services. So I'm just wondering about the prevalence and how you deal with that.
So at the warming center, we actually taking that into account. When we remodeled in November of 2020, so we do have a separate sleep area for the females. Okay. Knowing that, because that is one of the reasons why a female may be experiencing homelessness is to escape violence. So we do have a separate area for the women. They have their own sleep area, bathroom, shower, laundry, and the men are not allowed on that side. We've never had an issue or concern. So, but yeah, I mean, and since we've had that separate area, we've seen the number of women increase. You know, we have 14 beds in there. We've had 17 females check in at one time. You know, when we first opened up, we were a small little center. We had 30 beds, bunk beds, and we were all in one room. And so literally we would try to put the female guests like in the corner, but they were literally like within, you know, 3 or 4 feet away from a strange male. So yeah, we have a separate area, and we definitely can tell that it's appreciated because we're filling up a lot of the nights on the women's side.
Okay, one more question here.
The problem with going to the city council meeting is often they don't allow comments from the audience, so you can sit and listen to them do what they're going to do, but, you know, that's why we need to contact our council people ahead of time and express our strong feelings as you've expressed tonight.
Thank you. We want to be respectful of people's time, so we're going to move toward wrapping up. I wanted to give people one more chance. We started to talk about, yeah, okay. Does the Salvation Army have overnight housing, is the question. Okay, I wanted to give people one more chance because we started to talk about volunteering, but is there any needs that didn't get mentioned yet or something you really wanted to make sure people know if they want to get involved with you and how people can help?
Being a faith-driven organization, first and foremost, we ask for your prayers for us, but more importantly for the folks that we serve and for all of our partners so that we can do a good job for our neighbors. As the landing itself, like so many other of the organizations here, we do use volunteers every day, all day long, just serving coffee and granola bar. And I've had a lot of volunteers, I'll say, thank you so much, and they say, all I did was give them a cup of coffee. No, you didn't. You gave them kindness, right, Tyler? You looked them in the eye and you said, I'm so happy to see you today. What can I get for you? And just that simple kindness can be life transforming for these folks. So it's so much more than coffee and a granola bar. So get involved, give your time. We also use volunteers in sorting donations. We've used volunteers out on our mobile outreach unit to staff events that we do. We talked about the community education forums, things like that. We just had our gala last week. So we use a lot of volunteers We encourage you to just go to our website, thelandingmn.org, and see how you can get involved. Obviously, we take donations too. Right now, a big need is non-perishable single-serve food items. If somebody comes in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they haven't eaten in 3 days, it's past lunch, it's not dinner time yet, to have a mac and cheese cup, a beef stew, a ravioli, something that we can hold them over. Let's get you something to eat. It helps them decompress. Dr. Klim didn't get to talk too much about trauma-informed care, but being in survival mode that you heard about, that decision-making part of their brain cannot function because all they can think about is where can I sleep, where can I eat, where can I pee, where can I be safe. So just getting them something to eat helps them decompress, helps them start to come down out of that. And that's why we do what we do, is to help them come out of survival mode and hopefully start to think about a brighter future. That's our big need right now. Single-serve food items, volunteers. Keep advocating. We love you.
We need volunteers more than we need money. I want you to call Dorothy Day first before you call these other agencies. Because we're all volunteers. We have 3 shifts, 7 to 9 in the morning, 4 to 7, and then 7 to 9:30. That's when we need, and as well as cooks. So have cards, call us. If you do it, just don't tell me. There's a big difference between the law, and the law has its reasons, and in terms of what's just and right. I'm not going to deny Christmas cookies. Who someone takes the time, that's just as important. I know, I hope no one's here from the health department.
I just want to say, I already said what we for donations and whatnot, but I want to say, you just being here is huge. Like this like makes my heart smile. And the biggest thing that you can all do is go home and tell your family, tell your friends about these things. Talk about this. Talk about what you learned here tonight. This really means a lot to me, seeing how much the community cares. It really does.
I second that. This is a great community. Just a couple of things. If you want to learn more about Family Promise, Google Family Promise Rochester. It's pretty easy to find our webpage. You can learn about what we do, events. If you wish to donate, you can donate. You can learn what durable goods that we need for the shelter. And you can also learn about volunteer opportunities for Family Promise. Also, if you could follow us on Facebook, just search for Family Promise Rochester. It comes up pretty easily. If you follow us, you can learn what's going on, what events are coming up, what government activities we're participating in, and get some pretty cool pictures of volunteers, board members, and possibly myself having a little fun and raising money for families. Thank you.
So I also serve on the board of Family Promise, so if you donate, I will send you a picture of Steven trying to get out of a mattress, a blow-up bed that deflated halfway through the night. And your only way out is to like do the whole roll type thing. So, but I, again, just want to on the same, thank everybody for being here. This is amazing to see this amount of people that are wanting to learn more. I would say the biggest thing that we could use at the Warming Center, because we are splitting our staff up to 2 different locations, volunteers are great. And I know that there are some people that feel that a shelter, emergency shelter, may not be the safest. I have 17 team members and 1 on-call male. The rest are all females. The majority of the volunteers that we do have are females. So I encourage you, if you're interested, just to even do it once. If you do it one time and you can connect with somebody, great. And if it doesn't work out, great. Well, thank you the same. Volunteers are great because it definitely helps the staff out, but then it also gives another opportunity for a guest to talk to somebody else. And, and if you're somebody that really genuinely wants to learn and know some of these folks, just 5 minutes of your time just asking questions. And I tell all my volunteers, the night ones, that, you can sit down, take 10 minutes and sit down and talk with a guest. You'll be surprised how much they'll tell you when they feel like somebody really cares. And it's just listening to them, it's just being kind, it's like that family member that you would do anything for. That person is somebody's person that they would do anything for. And a lot of it is just they just want to be heard. So so if you're interested in volunteering, come to our website. I did update our Amazon wish list with the added people that we're seeing, having the 2 locations. Our resources are being strained, but we're doing the best we can. And if anybody is interested in helping us out, please just go to the website to volunteer, make a donation, any of that. It is greatly appreciated. So just thank you so much on behalf of all the people that I work with at the Warming Center. This is amazing to see all of you guys here tonight.
Well, I'm going to move us toward a closing prayer here presently, but first I would like maybe we could thank again all of our panelists for coming. Thank you for all the work they do, and thank you for coming on a long day to share their time with us. And on behalf of Holy Spirit and the Social Justice Commission, thank you all for coming as well. So I have a closing prayer. If we just put ourselves in the presence of God for a moment. Dear God, we thank you for your love and mercy that you extend to each of us. We want to pray for the homeless people in our area and the people who have a heart for the homeless and dedicate their efforts to helping those that are going through a hard time. Watch over us, Lord, especially those with no place to call home. Protect them from all harm and keep them from despair. Open the hearts and eyes of those of us with blessings to share. Unite our voices in a call for justice, so that no man or woman need ever lay down for the night on a park bench because he or she has no home. So that no woman or man need ever tuck her children his children into the backseat of her car or his car because they have no home. So that no child need ever wonder, will I feel safe? Because he has no home. So that all those who wander and all who are in need find the shelter and the peace they seek. Remind us, O God, that we cannot rest fully secure in our homes each night until all our brothers and sisters have a warm place to call home as well. Amen.